I raised 3 grandkids for 5 years, covering for my daughter-in-law who vanished after every failed startup. That morning, she returned with a chilling demand. Give me $350,000 right now. My son stood behind her, arms crossed like a debt collector. You owe this family. They did not know I had already changed the rules while they were sleeping on their victory. When they opened that envelope, their faces went pale. I did not disappear. I changed my role. My name is Margaret Hayes. I am 62 years old. It has been 12 years since my husband, David, passed, leaving me alone in this quiet, predictable house in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. The quiet is a comfort, earned after a life of noise. I supplement my peace with part-time work at North Harbor Community Billing, processing data, finding errors. I am very good at finding errors. The peace shattered at precisely 7:12 this morning. The doorbell was not a polite chime. It was an insistent, rude buzz. I did not need to check the security camera. Only 2 people in the world showed up unannounced at this hour, expecting the door to be open and the coffee to be hot. Nathan, my son, and his wife, Aubrey. They stood on the mat, already looking impatient, clutching a thick manila envelope as if it were a shield. Nathan brushed past me, offering a curt nod instead of a hello. The scent of an expensive cologne I did not recognize trailed him, sharp and invasive in my clean entryway. He went straight to the kitchen, straight to my coffee pot, walking with the heavy tread of someone who believes he owns the floorboards. Aubrey did not move far past the threshold. She leaned against the kitchen island, a sharp silhouette in the soft morning light. Her eyes, however, were not on me. They were fixed on the expensive, oversized watch on her thin wrist. She was already checking the time. A deadline was clearly approaching, and it was not hers. It was mine. I retrieved the mugs from the cabinet, the ceramic ones Nathan used to drink hot chocolate from after school, the ones with the chipped edges. My hands were steady. I poured the coffee I had already made for myself an hour earlier. I observed them. They stood 3 feet apart, but operated as one unit. The air between them was not marital. It was transactional. They were 2 partners about to pitch a desperate, final deal. And I was the investor they had cornered in the elevator. Aubrey pushed the envelope across the granite countertop. It slid and stopped perfectly in front of me. A formal summons. I did not touch it. Mom, Nathan began, his voice taking on that smooth, practiced tone he used when he wanted something, the one that meant I was about to lose ground. We need to talk about this. Aubrey finally spoke, her voice flat, as if discussing the price of milk. It's $350,000. It's from the Organic Influencer Fund. The final payment is due today. Not a request. A statement of fact. I opened the envelope. Inside, a neatly printed list of creditors, names I did not recognize, and amounts that made my stomach tighten into a cold knot. Nathan? I said, keeping my voice level, focusing on the hum of the refrigerator. It's a bridge loan. Mum, he cut in, the false confidence ringing hollow. That's all. A temporary cash flow problem. He leaned forward, attempting sincerity, placing his hands flat on my counter. Look, you raised the kids for 5 years. You held down the fort while we were building the brand. We get it. You've done a lot. He paused, letting the weight of my service settle in the air. Now, he said, his voice dropping. It's your turn to save us. Save us, not help us. Save us. As if I were a lifeboat and they were entitled to the last space. I folded my hands on the counter. This is the fourth time. Nathan. The seed money for the distribution hub in 2019, the marketing crisis last spring, the payroll gap just before Christmas. You called those bridge loans, too? I met his eyes. None of that money ever returned. A flash of irritation crossed his face. He hated being reminded of his failures, only his successes. Aubrey looked away, suddenly fascinated by the grain of my oak cabinets. The evasion was thick enough to cut. Aubrey stepped forward then, attempting a softer tactic. She placed her cold hand over mine on the counter. "Margaret," she said, using my first name, which she only did when she was truly desperate. "Forget the money. Think about the children. We are a family." That was the key. The word they always used to unlock my savings account. Family. For years, that single word was my greatest weakness. It was the reason their 3 children, my grandchildren, slept soundly in the bedrooms upstairs, bedrooms I had maintained, while their parents chased brands and illusions. I pulled my hand away slowly, using the moment to wipe it on my apron. I looked at the kitchen clock, 7:34. "I cannot access $350,000 before breakfast," I said. "I need time. I have to check my retirement accounts, see what the penalties are." Nathan relaxed, smelling victory. "Fine. How much time?" "Give me 24 hours, I said. "I will review my finances. Come back tomorrow morning." He nodded, satisfied. "Good. We'll be back at 7. They left as quickly as they came, a 2-person storm moving on to its next target. They thought I needed 24 hours to panic, to liquidate, to rescue them one last time. They misunderstood. I did not need the time to check my accounts. I had already done that. As the front door clicked shut, I walked to my small desk in the corner of the kitchen, the one where I paid my bills. Tucked beneath the blotter was another envelope. This one was white, crisp, and sealed with wax. My own handwriting was on the front, simple and clear. "Open after 7 p.m. The moment the deadbolt clicked, locking Nathan and Aubrey out. I picked up my phone. I did not dial 911. I dialed Louisa Park. Louisa and I met in college, in a political science seminar where we were the only 2 women who argued back. She was now a senior partner at Greywill and Finch, a woman who lived by the letter of the law. Her voice was sharp, even at 7:38 in the morning. "Margaret, are you okay? It's early." "They were here." "Louisa," I said. $350,000, due today." A heavy sigh on the other end. "Okay. I am logging into the system now. Give me 5 minutes." Louisa already had my authorization, signed 3 months ago when I first suspected this day was coming. While I waited, I went to my desk. I pulled out the file I had been building. It felt thin. But Louisa always said the weight of the evidence is not in the paper, but in the facts. "Maggie, are you sitting down?" Louisa's voice was back, and the casual greeting was gone. This was her lawyer voice. "I just ran your full credit profile. They did not just ask you for money. They have already been taking it." A coldness spread from my stomach. "What do you mean?" "There is a secondary checking account linked to your main one. It was opened as an authorized user account. The authorized user is Nathan Hayes." "I never authorized that." "I know," she said. "He opened it online. He used the access you gave him when you had your hip surgery back in 2016. Remember that power of attorney? The one you signed so he could pay your mortgage while you recovered. I remembered. I had been flat on my back, doped up on pain medication, grateful that he was handling things. I think he altered it, Maggie. Or maybe he just used the routing numbers to set up a new account under your umbrella. It is sloppy, but effective. But that is not the worst part. I waited. The hum of the refrigerator felt deafening. There is a second lien on your house. Margaret, $90,000. It was taken out 8 months ago. The borrower listed is Nathan Hayes, using the POA. I had to sit. The kitchen chair scraped against the tile. He had mortgaged my home, the home I was raising his children in. Louisa, my house is paid off. David made sure of that. Your house was paid off, she corrected. Nathan used that old POA to secure a home equity loan against your property. $90,000. He has been temporarily borrowing against your future, Maggie, to pay for their present. What do I do? My voice was a whisper. You do what we planned, Louisa said, her voice turning to steel. First, we freeze everything. I want you to go to the bank, a different branch in person. Today, you will revoke that old POA. I have already drafted the new one. You will sign it, and we will make me your financial agent. We are shutting Nathan out of your electronic access completely. We are changing all your passwords. The kids, I said, my mind racing. He will use the kids. Which is why you are building the other file, she said, anticipating me. While Louisa spoke, I was already moving. I opened the hall closet. Inside, a box labeled Mementos. It was not mementos. It was 5 years of proof. I pulled out the binders. Every doctor's copay for Elliot's asthma. Every invoice for Nora's dental work. The receipts for June's daycare. I had letters from their teachers, addressed to me, thanking me for attending the parent-teacher conferences. I had the grocery receipts. 5 years of grocery receipts. I was preparing for a custody battle they did not even know they were losing. What about the college funds? I asked, remembering the 529 plans I had started the day each of them was born. Checking now, Louisa said, a flurry of typing. Smart. You are listed as the custodian, not just the owner. He tried. I see 2 attempts to withdraw funds for non-qualified expenses last year. The system blocked him. He could not access it without your signature. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was rage. Louisa, that envelope they gave me, the $350,000 debt. It looked photocopied. I want to see it, she said. I am sending a contact at Silver Ridge Appraisals. They owe me a favor. They specialize in forensic signature analysis. I want them to look at that POA from 2016 and every document in that envelope. We need to see how deep the forgery goes. I looked at the clock. 9 a.m. My 24 hours had just begun. This is not just Aubrey's bad business sense. Is it? I asked, though I already knew the answer. No, Maggie, Louisa said, her voice softening slightly, but only slightly. This is not a debt problem. This is an architecture. This is a 5-year structure of borrowing and exploitation that Nathan built, using your love as collateral and his wife's failures as a distraction. He built this cage for you. I looked at the second envelope on my desk, the one marked open after 7 p.m. He built a cage, I agreed, my voice hardening. But he forgot I was the one who taught him how to read blueprints. I nodded. mostly to myself. Tonight, I will set my terms. If they refuse, I open the Nungan Kon Kowa. They believe this is about $350,000. They are wrong. This is about 5 years. 5 years. 3 children. And a promise I never meant to make. It started when Elliot was 4. He is 9 now, a quiet, watchful boy who sees too much. Then came Nora, who is 7, all fire and artistic sparks, and June, who is only 4 and has known my house as her primary home for most of her life. Their parents, my son and his wife, were building the empire. That was the phrase they used in those early days. It sounded grand, impressive, full of venture capital and Silicon Valley dreams. Even here in Oregon, it meant they were busy. It meant they were important. It meant they were absent. My retirement, the one I had planned with David, the quiet trips to the coast, the hours in my garden, evaporated. My life became a schedule dictated by their needs. The alarm rings at 6 a.m. Breakfast is on the table by 6:30. Elliot requires oatmeal. Nora prefers dry cereal. And June needs her milk warmed to an exact temperature. The school bus arrives at 7:20. I am the one standing at the curb, waving. I am the one who packs 3 lunches, checks 3 sets of homework, and signs 3 permission slips. After school, the house is not quiet. It is piano lessons for Nora on Tuesdays. It is basketball practice for Elliot on Thursdays, where I sit in the bleachers, the only guardian present, reading a book under the poor gym lighting. It is the nightly negotiation of math problems, the arguments over bath time, the reading of stories. It is a rhythm, relentless and exhausting, but a rhythm I learned to love because the children are blameless. Aubrey was the face of the empire, but she was prone to collapse. Every time a new product launch failed, or a marketing campaign backfired, or an influencer partnership imploded, she would disconnect. She would vanish, sometimes for a weekend, sometimes for 2 weeks, leaving Nathan to manage the fallout. When Aubrey disappeared, the bills did not. The daycare did not stop charging. The pediatrician still required a co-pay. I was the one who bridged the gap, as Nathan always phrased it. I used my part-time salary. I dipped into my pension. I covered the emergencies, which became monthly, then weekly. Nathan was the voice. He never disappeared. He managed. He would appear at my door, smelling of expensive coffee and false confidence. "Mum, I am so sorry. Aubrey is just stressed. We are closing a huge round of funding next quarter. I will pay you back double. I swear." The quarter would end. The new one would begin. The silence was the only thing that was consistent. It was a soft debt, the kind that never appears on paper, the kind built on guilt and obligation. You cannot collect on it, but you pay for it every single day. I remember one night, maybe 2 years ago, I was awake at 2 a.m. The house was silent, except for the hum of the heater. I was awake because Nora had cried earlier about a toothache, and the estimate for her dental work was over $900. I was trying to figure out which account I could pull it from without incurring a penalty, trying to balance it against the property taxes. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one David and I bought 30 years ago, and I remembered his voice, so clearly, from when Nathan was still in college and already asking for more money. "Margaret," David had said, his hand over mine, "love them, support them, but do not become the ATM of their affection. The machine eventually runs dry, and they will only blame you for being empty." That night, I stopped being just a grandmother. I became an accountant. I went to my laptop. I logged into my bank. I took a screenshot of every transfer I had made to Nathan and Aubrey for the past 5 years. I printed them. I went to the office supply store the next day and bought a simple, brown, leather-bound notebook. For every transfer, I wrote a note, dating it. February, $400. Aubrey's marketing conference. She disappeared for a week. May, $250. Elliot's basketball league fee. Nathan promised reimbursement. It became my living file. The proof was not just financial. Last month, at the parent-teacher conference for Elliot, the one I attended alone, his teacher, a kind young woman, handed me a note. "I just want to thank you, Mrs. Hayes," she said. "You are the most stable and consistent pickup Elliot has. He visibly relaxes when he sees you at the door." One sentence. It was not a compliment. It was an indictment. It landed on my heart like a 60-pound stone. That was when I promised myself I would set a limit. I will always love them. I will always protect those children. But when the money ran out, or when they asked for the one thing I could not give, I would stop. The love would continue, but the access would end. I started teaching Elliot the $10 budget. I gave him $10 in allowance. 6 is for spending, I told him. 3 is for saving, and 1 is for giving away. I was planting seeds of discipline in him that had failed to take root in his father. The memory of that night, the dental bill, and David's voice. It all fades as I hear the school bus stop at the corner. It is 3:30. I put the leather notebook back in its hiding place. I go to the kitchen. I pull out 3 mugs, the same chipped ones from this morning. I am stirring the cocoa powder into the warm milk when they burst through the door, all backpacks and shouting, the sound of a spoon clinking against ceramic, the smell of warm milk. These are the real sounds of a family, not the empty slogans Nathan and Aubrey try to sell me. At 7:05, the doorbell rang, not the insistent buzz from this morning, but 2 short, clipped rings. They were back. I had finished dinner with the children an hour ago. The kitchen was spotless. Elliot and Nora were in the living room, quietly doing their homework, a scene of domestic peace I had fought hard to create. June was asleep upstairs. The kitchen table, the center of our lives, was empty save for 2 white envelopes, placed precisely in the middle. They let themselves in. This time, they did not even bother to say hello. Aubrey went straight to the table and, with a flourish, placed a 3-page, full-color document in front of me. It was spiral-bound, as if it had been printed at a copy shop. "Our repayment plan," she announced, her voice brittle. "We've mapped out the projections." I picked it up. It was nonsense. Graphs without numbers, buzzwords like community marketing, synergistic outreach, and pro-level downlines. It was a pyramid scheme, printed on high-gloss paper. It was an insult. "Partners are waiting." "Mum," Nathan said. He was pacing by the stove, too agitated to sit. "They need the wire confirmation tonight. Did you check your accounts? Just give us the login. We can handle the transfer." I pushed Aubrey's colourful brochure aside. I picked up the first envelope. Envelope A. It was unsealed. I slid out the contents. It was not a colourful plan. It was a simple spreadsheet, 12 pages long, printed in black and white. "This is my accounting," I said. I laid the first page on the table. This is what I have spent on your children's food, clothing, and housing for the last 5 years. This, I said, adding the second page, is their medical and dental care. This is their education, their daycare, their school supplies, and their extracurricular activities. Page after page, I laid them out. The numbers grew. And this, I said, placing the last 2 pages on top, is the cash, the money I transferred to you for seed funding, payroll gaps, and bridge loans, the money you never paid back. They were both silent, staring at the final figure at the bottom of the last page. It was much, much more than $350,000. Nathan's face flushed a deep, angry red. "What is this?" he hissed, jabbing a finger at the paper. "You're getting revenge. You kept a list." "I am not getting revenge. Nathan," I said, my voice as cold and level as the granite countertop. "I am doing the accounting for the last 5 years. You came to me as business partners this morning. So, this is the balance sheet." Aubrey looked panicked. "This is not what we agreed on," she whispered, as if to herself. "If we do not get that short-term refinancing, the interest is going to kick in weekly. Weekly. Nathan." A slip. A crucial one. In the hallway, just out of sight. A small digital recorder Louisa had given me was running. It was my house. The recording was perfectly legal. I ignored her panic. I looked at Nathan. "I have a proposal. A humanitarian one." I tapped the second envelope. Envelope B. It was still sealed. "You are in debt," I said. "You are reckless, and you have 3 children upstairs who deserve better. Here is my offer. I will not give you $1 more. Instead, I will continue to do what I have been doing. I will raise Elliot, Nora, and June. I will pay for their food, their school, their health care. I will give them a stable home." Nathan looked confused. "So you are just keeping the kids?" "I am keeping them safe," I corrected. "In exchange, you 2 will sign up for mandatory, intensive financial counseling with an advisor I have already vetted. You will give me full, legal, temporary guardianship until you are both solvent and stable." They stared at me as if I had spoken in a foreign language. This was not part of their plan. They wanted a check, not a choice. "This is insane," Nathan said. "This is the offer," I said. "If you agree, we sign and we start tomorrow. If you refuse..." I picked up envelope B. This envelope contains copies of everything you just saw, plus the original, unaltered power of attorney from 2016, the forensic analysis of the fraudulent second lien on my home, and the transcript of your weekly interest problem. If you do not sign my offer, this envelope will be delivered to the Evergreen County Court and the District Attorney by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Nathan laughed. A short, ugly bark. "You would not. I am your son. You are a man who mortgaged his mother's house and is using his children as leverage," I replied. "Sign the agreement." "Nathan." He stared at me, his eyes full of a lifetime of entitlement, all of it curdling into hate. He looked at Aubrey. She was pale, shaking her head no. They would not sign. They would not give up. I nodded. Once. I picked up envelope B. I did not say another word. I walked past them, grabbed my keys from the hook by the door, and left my house. It was 7:43 p.m. Louisa was waiting for me in her car at the corner, the engine humming. The dome light was on. She was not a lawyer who waited for morning. She was a lawyer who acted. I got into the passenger seat. the sealed envelope B feeling heavy in my hand. It was 8:20 p.m. "Did they sign?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "No," I said. "Good," she replied. "It is cleaner this way." She did not drive to her office. She drove to a 24-hour administrative services building, one that catered to late-night legal filings. We sat in the lobby, under harsh fluorescent lights, and formally submitted everything. My statement, the 5-year accounting of every dollar, every cent, the receipts, the analysis from Silver Ridge Appraisals, which had confirmed earlier that afternoon that the signature on the $90,000 lien and the altered POA did not match the ink density or pressure of my known signature from 2016. It was a forgery, and a clumsy one at that. "The clerk is time-stamping everything," Louisa said, tapping on her phone. "Now, we build the wall." First, she electronically filed for an emergency temporary restraining order, a TRO. It was not against his person, but against his access. It sought to legally bar Nathan Hayes from accessing, transferring, or inquiring about any financial asset bearing my name. It specifically named the fraudulent power of attorney, demanding it be voided immediately. "The bank is next," she said. We did not wait for the TRO to be approved. Louisa called the bank's fraud hotline directly, a number not available to the general public. She identified herself, gave them my authorization, and put me on the line to confirm my identity. "We are issuing a formal notice of beneficial interest," Louisa told the man on the phone. "We are locking all accounts associated with Mrs. Hayes. The old POA is null. Any attempt to use it is to be considered fraud. She was building a firewall, in real time, at 9 p.m. on a weekday." Louisa was not done. Using her laptop from the car, she drafted 2 cease and desist letters. They were addressed to the short-term lenders Aubrey had foolishly named, the ones with the weekly interest. Louisa's letters were brutal and precise. They informed these organizations that their loan was likely secured under fraudulent pretenses, that they were attempting to collect from a non-party to their agreement, and that any further contact with me, Margaret Hayes, would be met with immediate legal action for harassment. She was turning their threat back on them, flagging me as a potential victim. "What about the children?" I asked, my voice tight. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a deep ache. "He will threaten to take them away." "He cannot," Louisa said simply. "Which brings me to my next call." She dialed the Evergreen County Parent Support Center. Even at this hour, she got a caseworker. She put me on speaker. I explained, in calm, measured tones, that I had been the sole, consistent caregiver for Elliot, Nora, and June for 5 years. I gave them the names of their teachers, their pediatrician, their dentist. "I have the records," I said. "All of them." The caseworker listened, took down the information, and confirmed that a file documenting my primary caregiver status would be opened. Louisa hung up. "One last thing for tonight." She opened her laptop again and, in my name, registered me for an online course. Financial Management for Guardians and Parents. I looked at her, confused. "Louisa, I do not need that." "I know," she said, submitting the payment. "It is not for you. It is for the court. It shows you are a proactive, responsible, and competent caregiver, anticipating the children's future needs, while Nathan and Aubrey are demonstrably not. We are not just proving they are bad, we are proving you are better." She finally put the car in drive and headed toward my street. "This is not a war, Maggie," she said, her voice softer now. Do not think of it that way. This is a fence, a healthy boundary. It is what protects the love. It keeps the poison out. The next morning, I went out and bought a small, fireproof safe. I took the leather-bound notebook, every receipt, every printed screenshot, and the tiny USB drive Louisa had helped me create, labeled 5 years, zip, and I locked them inside. I also upgraded my security. The doorbell camera now sent instant alerts, not just to my phone, but to Louisa's office and to my neighbour, old Mr. Whitman, a retired Marine who missed nothing. I stood in my kitchen, the house silent. The children were safe. Their parents were not. I had made my choice. If they chose to continue this hard road, I was ready. I would be soft for the children, but I would be granite for the adults. The legal fences we built began to hold, and as they did, the cracks in Nathan's and Aubrey's facade started to show. Louisa called me on Thursday. The signature analysis from Silver Ridge came back, she said, her voice tight. It is exactly what we thought, only worse. The power of attorney. You signed in 2016 was a multi-page document. They did not just forge your signature, they replaced an entire page. Page 2, the one detailing the limits of the financial power. The ink on that page does not match the timestamp. It is new. It was one thing to suspect. It was another to know. To have forensic proof that my son had actively, methodically, and illegally altered a legal document to steal from me. The proof did not stop there. The old iPad Elliot used for his schoolwork, the one that used to be Nathan's, was still synced to his father's cloud account. He had been careless. A draft email was discovered by Louisa's tech analyst, sitting in his unsent folder. It was addressed to one of the weekly lenders. The subject line was collateral. The body was short. If Mum signs the new papers tonight, the $350K is guaranteed. If not, we pivot to the house. She will break. Bet on it. He had been betting on me, betting on my love as if it were a horse in a race he could fix. While Nathan's legal problems were mounting, Aubrey's public ones were exploding. Her social media, once a curated feed of sunshine and organic products, had turned dark. The comments were disabled. Louisa's investigator found that 2 of her largest partners were demanding full refunds for a failed campaign. One of them, a wellness guru based in Arizona, had sent her a message that was less a request and more a threat. The pressure was mounting, and I saw the first sign of it through Elliot. He was helping me dry the dishes, his small hands careful with the plates. He was quiet, which was not unusual. But this was a heavy silence. "Grandma," he asked, not looking at me. "Yes, honey. Mom said we might go to Santa Fe for a few months." A cold dread, sharper than anything I had felt before, gripped me. Santa Fe. When did she say this? Elliot. Last night. She was on the phone. She said if everything is finished here, we would go. I do not want to go. I called Louisa immediately. He cannot just take them. Can he? Unfortunately, Margaret, he can, she said. They are his children. Moving them across state lines, while you and I might see it as an act of bad faith, is not illegal as long as he has parental rights. The only way to stop it is if he signs over authorization. He will never do that, I said. Then we prepare for it, she said. I am drafting a temporary delegation of parental authority. It is a simple form. If you can get one of them to sign it, even for a day, we can use it. A form. Another piece of paper in a battle of paper. Then, The biggest crack appeared. It was late afternoon. The doorbell rang. I checked the camera, expecting the worst. It was Aubrey, but she was alone. I had not seen her without Nathan in years. I opened the door. She looked diminished. The high-gloss armor of the influencer was gone. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot. Her face was pale, and she looked exhausted down to her bones. "He is not here," she said, her voice thin. I have about 10 minutes." She did not ask to come in. She just stood in my entryway. She pulled out her phone, her hand shaking. "I am not here for money," she said, as if reading my mind. "I am here because he is losing, and he is getting scary." She showed me the screen. It was a screenshot of a text message from Nathan to one of his partners, the one he had bet with. The text said, "The old woman is not breaking. I am moving to Plan B. She will not see them again until she pays. Plan B, my grandchildren. He is going to take them. Is not he?" she whispered, tears finally welling in her eyes. "To Santa Fe. He thinks your friend Delia is there. He thinks he can follow you." My heart hammered. "What do you want?" "Aubrey." "I am not a good person, Margaret," she said, looking down at her phone. "I knew about the POA. I did not stop him. But they are my kids." She took a shuddering breath. "I need an escape route. For them. If everything collapses one night, if he tries to run, where do I send them?" I did not hesitate. I went to the small safe in my closet. I pulled out a pre-packed waterproof pouch, a go bag. I had made 3 of them, one for each child. I handed one to her. "Inside," I said, my voice all business, "are certified copies of their birth certificates and their health insurance cards. There is $500 in cash. And this," I pointed to a laminated card, "is the address and phone number for St. Rowan's Church. The pastor's name is Joel. He is expecting you, day or night. It is a temporary shelter. You will be safe there until I can get to you." She clutched the bag to her chest. "Thank you." She started to leave, then turned at the door. "Margaret," she said, and her voice was raw. "If I ever come back, if I am ever desperate enough to ask you for money again, you have every right to say no. I deserve it. But please." She looked past me, toward the sound of the television in the living room. "Do not ever say no to them. They did not choose this." I watched her walk away, a quick, hurried retreat to her car. I closed the door, and I finally understood. I had always seen Aubrey as the problem, but I was wrong. The weakest person in this equation, the one most likely to break, was not the one I had been fighting. Aubrey's visit changed my focus. It was no longer just about building a fence. It was about managing the inevitable collapse. I could not just react. I needed a plan. I called it the no plan. It was simple, but it was absolute. From that moment on, every single request from Nathan or Aubrey regarding money would be met with one word, no. But no on its own was a closed door, and a cornered animal is dangerous. My no had to be followed by an immediate pivot. "No," I would say, "I will not give you money. But here is what I can do." My can-do list was finite and non-negotiable. I could, and would, continue to care for my grandchildren. I would pick them up from school, make them dinner, and check their homework. I would pay for their needs. What I could not do was pay for their parents' wants. I would not pay their debts. I would not co-sign a loan. I would not liquidate my future to fund their fantasy. To make this real, I took the first concrete step. I went to a different bank, one where Nathan had no history, and I opened a new, small, irrevocable trust account. I named it the Hayes Kids Essentials Fund. I moved a protected portion of my savings into it. This money was legally designated for one purpose: the education, health, and documented living expenses of Elliot, Nora, and June. It was only accessible by me, or by Louisa, in my absence, and only with itemized receipts. I was building a financial lifeboat just for the children. Next, I met with an independent financial advisor at a firm Louisa recommended, Western Alder Advisory. We spent 2 hours reviewing my pension, my retirement accounts, and my new 10-year budget. This budget now included the full-time cost of 3 children. The advisor, a woman with no-nonsense eyes, confirmed my fears. If I had given Nathan that $350,000, I would have been destitute within 3 years. After that meeting, I updated my will. I finalized my estate. It was not large, but it was mine. My will was now ironclad if anything happened to me. My small assets, including the house, would not pass to Nathan. They would be liquidated and placed entirely into the Hayes Kids Essentials Trust Fund, to be managed by Louisa until the children were adults. I was cutting the adults out completely. Louisa and I also mapped out the next legal step. "The TRO is temporary," she warned. "If he continues to violate it, if he harasses you or tries to access your money, we will petition for a permanent financial protection order." This was not just a legal strategy, it was a psychological one. I had to be ready. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror. The children were asleep. The house was quiet. I looked at my own reflection. "No," I said. My voice was quiet. "No, I will not be discussing that. No, that does not work for me. No, no." I practiced 5 different ways to say it. Calmly, firmly, without apologizing, without offering a long explanation that he could pick apart. I was training myself to shed a lifetime of maternal obligation, to replace it with a spine of steel. I called Pastor Joel at St. Rowan's, the man whose name was in Aubrey's go bag. I explained the situation vaguely and asked if he could guarantee a 48-hour shelter space, no questions asked, if a mother and 3 children arrived in the middle of the night. He agreed. To keep myself focused, I wrote a note on a small whiteboard and stuck it to my refrigerator, right next to the children's artwork. It was my new list of rules. Love, responsibility, money, discipline, emergency, call Louisa. I was standing there, reading it, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number, but I knew who it was. The bank just called me. The text read, "They froze my access. They froze my house. This is my house. Mom, if you do not fix this and give me the money, I am selling it." I looked at the text. He was spiraling. He was threatening to sell a house that was still legally in my name, a house that now had a legal warning attached to it, forbidding any sale or transfer. He was bluffing with a hand he did not have. I put the phone down, my hand steady. The no plan was working. He was feeling it, and I was ready for his next move. The text message from Nathan was a threat, but the real crisis arrived at 1:17 in the morning. It was not the loud, insistent buzz from before, but a soft, desperate tapping on my front door. I was already awake, dressed in jeans and a sweater. The security camera showed Aubrey huddled on the mat, with Elliot, Nora, and June beside her. The 3 children were pale and silent, clutching 2 worn backpacks. They were here. I opened the door and pulled them inside in one swift motion, locking the deadbolt behind them. Aubrey was trembling. "He's gone," she whispered. "He got a call, and he smashed his phone, and he said he was going to fix this. He drove away. I took the keys to the minivan. I did not know where else to go." "You did the right thing," I said, my voice calm. "We have a plan. Go to the kitchen." While she herded the sleepy, confused children to the table, I went to the hall closet and pulled out the emergency pack I had prepared. Inside were 3 small, pre-rolled bundles of warm clothes, 3 boxes of shelf-stable milk, and 3 small, quiet toys, a wooden car for Elliot, a small sketch pad for Nora, and a soft bear for June. At the bottom were the keys to Mr. Whitman's old sedan, the one he kept in his garage. I had borrowed them 2 days ago. "In case my car breaks down." "We are not staying here," I said, handing Aubrey the keys. "We are going to St. Rowan's. Pastor Joel is expecting us." We moved quickly, not running, but with purpose. We loaded the children into the unfamiliar car. They did not cry. They were too scared. They just watched me, their eyes wide in the dark. I drove the 5 miles to the church, using back roads. The lights were off, but Pastor Joel was waiting by a side door, as promised. He opened it and led us down to a warm, clean community room in the basement. It had cots, a small kitchen, and a locked door. "You are safe here," he said, his voice a low, comforting rumble. "No one will find you." As Aubrey got the children settled onto the cots, my phone vibrated. It was Louisa. "He did it," she said, her voice wired and angry. "Nathan just sent an email to a realtor and CC'd me, threatening to sell the house. He is trying to panic us." "Is it working?" I asked, watching Nora clutch the new bear. "For him, no. I am filing an emergency injunction online right now, based on his threat and the fraudulent lien. A judge will see it by 6 a.m. We are requesting a temporary block on any sale or transfer. But Maggie, he's desperate. The church is not safe for long. He knows you're a creature of habit. He will check there." I looked at Aubrey, who was looking at me with terrified, hollow eyes. I had to make a new decision. The fence was not enough. "We are going to Santa Fe," I said, my voice low but final. "My old friend Delia lives there. He does not know about her. He does not know where she lives." Louisa was silent for a beat. "That is a long drive. Maggie." "I have a full tank of gas," I said. "I will drive. We leave in 10 minutes. We did not stay at the church. We got back in Mr. Whitman's car and pointed it south. We drove for hours in the dark. As the sun came up over the desert, Elliot spoke from the back seat. "Dad had friends come over," he said, his voice small. "They were not friends. They were big. And they yelled. They said Dad bet the house. And lost." I met Aubrey's eyes in the rearview mirror. This was not just a domestic dispute. Nathan had brought sharks to his door, and they were circling. "You are safe now, Elliot," I said, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I will not let the sharks in." We arrived in Santa Fe, exhausted and raw. 20 hours later, my friend Delia, a woman I had known for 40 years, took one look at us and opened her door. She took the children, fed them, and settled them in her guest rooms. She even called a friend, a principal at the local Sun Mesa Elementary, to arrange for temporary enrollment for Elliot and Nora. That evening, as the children slept, I sat with Aubrey at Delia's kitchen table. I laid out the no plan. I showed her the trust, the budget, the firewall I was building, and I showed her the temporary custody authorization Louisa had drafted. "He is going to lose them, is not he?" she whispered. "He already has," I said. "The only question is if you are going to lose them, too." She took the pen, her hand shaking, and she signed the paper. She gave me legal, temporary custody of her 3 children for 30 days. I felt a wave of relief so profound it almost made me sick. I had them. I had them legally. I was texting Louisa the good news when a new email popped up on my phone. It had been forwarded from Louisa's office, from one of the weekly lenders Nathan had used. The firm had bypassed Louisa and found my personal email. "Mrs. Hayes," it read. "We see you are in Santa Fe, a long way from home. We feel your son's debt is a family matter. We will be paying you a visit to discuss this in person." My blood ran cold. They had found me. Louisa called 2 seconds later. "They are threatening you, Maggie. This is extortion. Do not run. You have the kids. You have the signature. Running makes you look guilty. Come back to Portland. Come back. And let's face them. Legally, in a courtroom." I looked at Delia, who nodded. I went into the guest room and kissed my 3 grandchildren. I left the small safe's code with Delia, just in case. Then I got back in the car. I was not running to Santa Fe anymore. I was driving back to Portland, driving back to the fight. Driving back from Santa Fe was an exercise in controlled rage. I did not speed. I did not stop, except for gas. By the time I walked into the Evergreen County Courthouse for the emergency hearing, I was running on fumes and steel. The room was small, beige, and smelled of stale coffee. Nathan was already there, standing next to a lawyer in a cheap suit who looked like he was in over his head. Nathan looked terrible. He had not slept, and his arrogance was vibrating with raw panic. He saw me, and his face hardened. "We are here." The judge, a sharp-faced woman who looked like she had no time for nonsense, announced, "On the matter of an emergency petition regarding the property at 722 Cedar Drive, Mr. Hayes, your lawyer claims you need to sell the property immediately to satisfy a business debt." "That is correct, Your Honor." Nathan's lawyer began. "My client is the primary—" "Objection," Louisa said, standing up. She was not in her usual power suit. She was in a muted grey dress. She looked calm, steady, and lethal. "My client, Margaret Hayes, is the sole owner of that property, free and clear, until a fraudulent lien was placed against it 8 months ago. My client has power of attorney." Nathan's lawyer countered. "A document we are here to contest," Louisa said smoothly. The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Hayes, you object to the sale?" "I do, Your Honor," I said, my voice clear in the small room. "Then show me why," the judge said, leaning forward. What followed was not a messy family fight. It was a surgical execution. Louisa, in a voice devoid of emotion, laid out the facts. She presented my 5-year financial analysis. She submitted the binders, the doctor's bills, the teacher's letters, the grocery receipts. She showed the transfer of funds, followed by the identical promises of repayment from Nathan. "This is not a son helping his mother, Your Honor," Louisa said. "This is a 5-year pattern of financial elder abuse." Nathan's lawyer, flustered, shot back. My client has had full authority to manage his mother's finances since 2016. We have the document. He produced his copy of the POA, handing it to the bailiff. Louisa smiled, just slightly. We have a copy as well, Your Honour, along with the report from a court-certified forensics expert. The expert was called. He pointed to the document. Page 2 of the defendant's copy, the one granting unlimited financial access, is a replacement. Your Honour, the ink, the paper stock, and the printer's microdot signature do not match the other pages, nor do they match the timestamp of the original signature. It was inserted later. The heir left the room. Nathan's lawyer looked at the document, then at his client, his face a mask of dawning horror. This was the turning point. This was the moment the lies stopped working. The judge's face was grim. I am ordering an immediate freeze on the transfer or sale of this property. Mrs. Hayes's ownership is affirmed. Mr. Hayes, you are barred from accessing any of your mother's accounts. You are barred from contacting her, harassing her, or making any financial demands of her. We will review this again at a formal hearing. We stood. I had won. At least, I had won the first battle. We walked out into the bright, cold hallway. I was shaking, and I did not realize it until Louisa put a hand on my arm. Breathe, Maggie, she said. Margaret. I turned. It was Aubrey. She was standing by the elevator, alone, holding the go-bag I had given her. She looked at me, then at Louisa. I need to talk, she said, her voice shaking. I need to tell the truth, to the judge. Louisa and I exchanged a look, a witness turning. This late was a massive risk, but it was also an opportunity. What truth? Aubrey. Louisa asked. That 350,000, she said, the words tumbling out. It was not all mine. Maybe half was. The rest, that was Nathan. He was using my failed startups as a cover story. He was raising capital for some new, bigger deal. He was borrowing from those weekly lenders, in my name, to fund his own thing. He lied to me. He lied to you. Louisa did not hesitate. Come with us. We went back into the courtroom. The judge was still on the bench. Louisa interrupted. Your Honour, begging the court's indulgence. A new witness has come forward with information directly pertaining to the fraud. The judge looked at the clock, annoyed, but motioned Aubrey forward. Aubrey told her story. It was messy, tearful, and, for the first time, it was honest. She admitted she knew about the POA. She admitted Nathan had been siphoning money. She admitted the debt was a lie to cover a bigger lie. As she spoke, Louisa picked up envelope B, the one from my kitchen table. Your Honour, she said, my client, Mrs. Hayes, did not come here today just to punish her son. She came here to set a boundary. She handed the envelope to the judge. This was my client's original offer. It is a full, non-financial settlement. It outlines a mandatory, court-supervised financial counselling program for Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, and a structured, zero-interest repayment plan for the actual money they took. My client is not seeking financial restitution for her pain. She is seeking accountability. The judge read the document. Her expression softened, just slightly. She looked at me with something new in her eyes. Respect. Mrs. Hayes, she said, you have acted in remarkable good faith, despite the violations against you. I am ordering Mr. Hayes to participate in this program. Failure to comply will result in the most severe contempt charges. This is your one chance, Mr. Hayes, to avoid a full felony fraud investigation. Nathan, who had been white with rage, finally scoffed. This is a joke, he said, loud enough for the court to hear. She is putting on a show just to look good. I turned, and I looked at my son, the man I had raised, the man who had betrayed me. No, Nathan, I said, my voice carrying in the quiet room. I am not putting on a show. I am being a mother, in the correct way, for the first time in a very long time. The judge banged her gavel. This hearing is adjourned. We will meet for the formal review in 30 days. She looked at me. And Mrs. Hayes, the temporary custody authorization you filed, signed by Mrs. Hayes, is noted and affirmed by this court. You will continue to care for the children. I walked out, leaving both of them behind. My head held high. I had the children. I had the house. And I had the truth. The 30 days passed in a blur of forced normalcy. I took the children to school. I made dinners. I helped with homework. And all the while, the legal clock was ticking. The night before our final court date, the main hearing, my doorbell rang. It was Nathan. He was alone. He looked like a man who had been hollowed out. They are asleep, I said, blocking the doorway. I do not care about them, he snapped, his voice rough. I am here for you. Just listen. 200,000. That is it. Not the 350. Just 200,000. I can get it back to you. I swear. In 90 days. Just make this go away. He was trying to negotiate. He was bargaining with a woman who had nothing left to lose. I did what I had practiced in the mirror. I held the silence. I counted 10 full seconds, watching the panic rise in his eyes as I just looked at him. No, I said. His face contorted, the thin veneer of civility cracking. Then I am taking the house, he spat. I will sell it. I do not care what that judge said. You cannot, I said. I did not raise my voice. I reached for the small stack of mail on the entryway table and handed him a letter from my bank. That is the official notice. Nathan, the court's order has frozen any transfer or sale. The house is not yours to sell. It was never yours to sell. He saw the bank's letterhead, and a new, more desperate rage took over. He switched tactics. He went for the emotional kill. You owe me this, he hissed, his voice dropping. You owe me. You checked out when Dad died. You left me alone to handle everything. You owe me for that. For a second, the old guilt, the one he had sharpened and used as a weapon his entire adult life, pricked at me. But this time, I was ready for it. He did not want this. Nathan, I said. What? Your father. He did not want me to be your bank. I held up my phone. On the screen was a scanned, handwritten letter. Delia kept this for me. It is the letter your father wrote to me before his last surgery. The one he told me to open if I ever felt lost. I read his father's words aloud, my voice clear in the night air. Maggie, love him, guide him. But do not let him mistake your love for a line of credit. Do not be his bank. He has to stand on his own. Nathan stared at the phone, speechless. And just in case that is not enough, I said, I have this. I pressed a button on the small digital recorder Louisa had left on the entryway table. the one that had been legally recording anyone who came to my front door. His own voice filled the silence, high-pitched and arrogant. It was the betting call. "She will break." His voice echoed in the entryway. "Bet on it." I stopped the recording. "That is what Louisa will play for the judge tomorrow. Nathan, if you do not stop this right now." He finally looked defeated. The fight was gone. I held out one last piece of paper. Not a threat. An offer. "This," I said, "is the restoration agreement Louisa drafted. It is the same one from the hearing. You sign it tonight? You agree, under court supervision, to sell your SUV to pay the first of your real debts. You agree to the financial program. If you sign this, and mean it, I will ask Louisa to withdraw the request for the additional sanctions." He looked at the paper. He looked at me. He looked out the window, past my shoulder. I knew what he was seeing. Across the street, parked just out of the direct light, was a parked patrol car. It was not there for him. Not yet. But Louisa had informed the local precinct of the risk of a conflict, and they were standing by, just out of sight. He had one last chance to choose the right path. He looked at the agreement. He looked at the police car. And then, in one violent motion, he tore the paper in half. He threw the pieces at my feet. He chose to lose everything. "You have your choice, Nathan," I said, my voice calm. "And I have my right to protect myself." I closed the door. The next morning, in court, it was over in 20 minutes. Aubrey, holding the temporary custody papers I had given her, confirmed her signature. She formally accepted the mandatory financial counseling. Nathan stood silent. The judge, seeing he had rejected the settlement, made it an order. The financial restraining order against him was made permanent. The mandatory counseling program was no longer a request. It was a non-negotiable term of his financial probation. We walked out into the sunlight. I was alone. Aubrey had left through a side door. Nathan was 10 feet behind me. "You will regret this." "Mom!" He called out across the courthouse plaza. I stopped. I turned around to face him one last time, the noise of the street fading away. "Nathan," I said, and my voice was finally, truly, my own. "After 5 years of raising your children, today I raised myself. And as for the money, the answer is still no. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. I see you, and I appreciate you for being here. I am so curious to know where everyone is listening from, so please drop a comment below. Let me know where in the world you are, and share your thoughts with me. And if this story resonated with you, I would be so grateful if you would subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, give this video a like, and maybe even hit that hype button so more people can hear it.